Are you a woman standing at a crossroads, eager for change? It's time to connect with your authentic and empowered self at Boss Leap. Join Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker in this empowering community where real-life stories of courageous and talented women inspire and motivate. Engage in honest conversations that foster well-being, drawing from our own journeys. Let us guide you toward profound growth and transformation in both your personal and professional life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker.
Well, welcome back to Boss Leap. I am Dr. Sylvia Morris, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Angela Walker. And today we have an exciting conversation with Ruaa Al-Baldawi. I cannot tell you how much we've been looking forward to this conversation. But before we get into everything, Angela, how are you doing today?
I am good. As I mentioned, had a impromptu weekend. I put my feet in the sand, and if I can be at the ocean for 5 minutes, it's just a complete reset for me. So mindset is good. Getting over a cold, so hopefully can bear with the nasally sound, but super, super excited to talk with Ruaa Al-Baldawi. And this has been so exciting for me because I know a little bit about your backstory, Ruaa, and I'll let you introduce and tell us what you do. But I just think you are like an epitome of, what we want to talk about in terms of making boss moves in your life, being courageous enough to do things that serve you well and maybe even serve you better, and maybe things that you didn't necessarily anticipate to happen in life. But I won't go on and on. I'm just really excited to be here and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Sylvia, for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of Boss Leap today.
Yeah. And the last time we were all together, you ladies were sitting in my living room and I was debuting my new great room with my furniture and all the beautiful accoutrements that our very own Ruaa helped put together. Really was the driving force for it. So definitely making boss leaps. But before we get to RNA designs and talking about all that, Ruaa, tell us, what do you want to do when you grew up?
That's an excellent question, Sylvia. Honestly, I didn't have anything definitive in mind. I only knew that I wanted to leave my mark in the world. I wanted to be someone who created something or helped people in a way that made a positive impact in other people's lives. I love design and creating things, and I should have seen that as my, aha moment when I was younger.
We don't should here at Boss
I
Leap. It just is, and we're
It
all
is
learning.
now. I will tell you that. It is now. I found my path back to what I should have done, and I'm doing it. But, not everybody starts out or has the courage to do what they were passionate about or thought that they should pursue, right? So that was me. I knew I loved design and creating things, but when I was younger, I didn't pursue that. I didn't think to pursue it as a career. And that really was due to my parental influence. Growing up as a Middle Eastern young woman, there were a few number of careers that my family thought were worthy of pursuing, mainly because they were stable jobs, they paid the bills, let's say. And so that's kind of what they geared me towards. And, those professions are healthcare, they're lawyer, they're engineer, they're professor, they're dentist. Interior design wasn't seen as something that was a stable job or something that paid the bills. But, now that I am older and I go back and I think about it, there were some really defining moments in my life where it should have been an aha, I love this, I should do this for my, career when I grow up. And there's one that really stands out to me. I still remember I was in high school. We lived in this house and the kitchen had a breakfast area and it had this frame wallpaper. And my mom was really busy at the time, 2 daughters, a full-time job, trying to maintain a house. She didn't have time to think about, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to change it? So she didn't bother with it. But, my personality, it just kept eating away at me. And so one morning in the summer, I just got off the breakfast table and I ripped the wallpaper off, just like ripped it off the wall.
What
And
did your mom say to that?
I was going to say, I'll spare you the details of how livid she was and all the lovely words she was throwing at me that day. But, thankfully, my father came to the rescue and he said, okay, well, she committed the crime. She's going to fix it and I will help her do it. And we did just that. We went to Home Depot. We rented the equipment, we steamed the wallpaper off, we mudded the walls, we sanded, we primed, we painted.
Wow.
And it took a while because we hadn't done it, but that's what we did. But the funny thing is after that, I looked around the kitchen and I noticed how dated the cabinets were. And so I asked them, I was like, do you mind if I just took the cabinet faces down and painted those, gave them a little refresh just so that the kitchen looks a little cleaner? And after she'd seen, the walls, she was like, okay, fine, go ahead and do it.
And is this before YouTube where you could go on and see where everyone else did it? This is
like early 90s.
Wow.
okay. Yeah.
This was early 90s. So I don't know if YouTube was there then, but it was early 90s. And I'm really going to date myself by saying this, but I still remember like one night that really stands out. I was, sitting on the kitchen floor. There was newspapers everywhere. The faces of the cabinets were there. And I had my boombox playing to music. And I was just singing along. And I had my paintbrush. And, at that time, I was trying to get creative with what to do with those cabinet faces, and they were shaker style. So they had like a picture frame and then they were, flat in the center. And so I decided I was going to do two-tone. So I picked out like a creamy white color for the border and this really beautiful earthy brown for the center. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And, ironically, I did that thinking, wow, this is totally creative. I did this amazing job. And next year, that was the trend. That became the trend. So my mother was like really thrilled that she was on trend with her kitchen cabinets. And my dad updated, we updated the appliances. It just looked great. She loved it. Again, should have been my, aha moment. This is what you love. This is what you enjoy. This is what you should pursue. Didn't do that. And, now as an adult, I regretted not going into design, but I'm extremely thankful that I got an opportunity to do so later on in life.
So question. So number one, just an observation, I can just see the light in your eyes. And as you said, it's reflecting back a defining moment. Now that's huge to me. That's huge to be courageous enough to do something in your mom's kitchen. But just the process that you went through, as a teenager, I think is powerful in that then at that moment in time, it let you know that it could be done. Not that you knew that was going to be a career path that you could do, but that you could do it. So that's huge. And a testament, at least, to your parents, and that they did allow you to, after that moment, to continue to create. But question for you in terms of what you do now, and I'm hearing you say, should have known. What do you think your career path up to this point actually helped you with? Or do you think that can you see in any relationship there? I know you chose an alternative career path before going back into adding design.
I mean, it really does. With healthcare, everything's so, you've got to be organized. You got to be on top of things. And at times you've got to be open-minded and explore different avenues. And I feel like that helped with design as well. You got to sit there, you also listening, I think listening skills, listen to your clients, try to get a great idea of what it is they're looking for, what emotions they're trying to invoke in their space, what feelings they want people to have when they enter their house, their home, their sanctuary. And so, with healthcare, we do a lot of listening to our patients to try to evaluate what's going on with them. And I think that helped with design as well. So that's definitely one thing that I can think of off the top of my head that healthcare helped with in terms of design.
And I think also, Ruaa, in our conversations, when we are in sort of a work setting, you're really good at stating the case for why this is important, why this is necessary, and being really willing to kind of go against the grain. And I think that that's really important when we talk about design and also when we talk about real estate, because sometimes people think they know something, but they're completely wrong. And you really help people to say, maybe, have you thought about this? Let's consider something else.
Yeah, I tend to do that a lot with clients even now. I'll say, okay, so you gave me an idea of what it is that you like. I'm going to throw some options out there that are outside the box, outside of what you told me. And it's two reasons I do that. One, you never know what you like until you see it, right? So you might not have thought of something that you would like, and then somebody throws it out there and you're like, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, I could love that, or that would be great. But also to confirm what they do like. So if they see something and they're like, no, I definitely know I don't want that, or I definitely know I don't like that, then it helps reassure them that what they did choose or what they selected or what they stated they liked is what they're sticking with.
I think you don't know what you don't know.
Correct. You don't know what you don't know.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up question to, what your initial premise was, is that, you should have felt like you should have, known when that experience happened, what your life path, might have been. What would you tell your younger self right now? I mean, what would you tell someone that's in your shoes right now in, 2024, that's living your experience at home, but particularly you, that may have been helpful, or just now, what would you tell her just to give her some reassurance?
Excellent question. I've thought about that exact topic over several times throughout my life, different stages of my life. And, my husband and I even had that discussion. I think the first thing is, would I have taken my own advice? When you're young, you think you know it all, kind of what you said. And you don't listen to your elders because you're like, oh, they're old, they don't know what they're talking about. But they've lived a lot more life than you have, and you really should stop and listen to what they're saying. So I think the first thing is, would I have even listened to myself? But if I had listened to myself, there are a couple of things I would have said in terms of advice. The first is, don't live life thinking of what's to become. Live it for now. For today, enjoy each and every day to its fullest. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And once today is gone, that's it. It's gone. You're not getting it back, right? And you don't want to end up living life with regrets or saying, what if I had done this? Or what if I had done that? Just do it. Do it and see what happens. A little bit along those lines too. One really great piece of advice that I would give myself is, life is always going to throw you curveballs. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Don't get upset and scared if things don't go as you've planned. You don't know what is to come, and it may be something that's better for you. You just can't see it yet. So, accept the situation as is, adjust, and move forward. There's a lesson also now that I'm trying to teach my 5-year-old, believe it or not, and it's a very hard lesson for her. She's very much into winning, and, I don't want to be a loser, and who gets there first and who does things first. Line leader is apparently very important right now. You get to lead the line.
Yes.
So at 5, we're also.
But Eve is a born leader. I've met Eve.
I believe that
agree.
too, but it's very tough raising a born leader. I always to remind myself of that. You want her to be strong, but it's not easy raising a born leader. But she doesn't like losing, right? So she cries about it. And the one thing that I really want her to learn, not just at 5, but even as she gets older, is there's no such thing as losing or failure, right? Unless you give up. That's the only time you truly lose or fail. And for me, I always try to keep in mind the words of Nelson Mandela. He said, I don't lose. I either win or I learn. And so I think that's really a great thing to keep in mind and to try to teach the young people of today. I mean, I'll give you the greatest example. The first time we played Uno, she's played Uno with her dad. And daddy, of course, doesn't love to see daddy's girl cry, right? It's like, I don't know what it is with daddies and their daughters.
Wait, are
But
you telling us you're gonna beat Eve? You're not gonna lose to Eve, my Eve?
oh, wait. No. Sorry.
I love it.
Daddy lets Eve win. Mommy plays by the rules. You got to win fair and square with mommy, right? You know, I'm not trying to raise a weak woman here. You just said it. Born leader has to be strong. I was raised by a strong woman. My mother was raised by a strong woman. You just got to keep it going. So mommy doesn't let her win. And I remember the first time we played Uno, she lost. And she was so upset. She started crying. And I just looked her straight in the face and I said, why are you crying? What's that going to solve? Is it going to solve anything? No, mommy. Okay. Is it going to do anything for you? No, mommy. I said, okay, let's stop crying. No point to that. Let's learn how to win. Wouldn't you want to do that? And she like stopped the crying. She's like, yes, I want to learn how to win. I said, okay. So then I'm like showing her, you know, you got to skip here. It's just the two of us. You use your skip, you get another turn. And I slowly started to teach her to strategize. And, you know, second, third time she lost, she learned something a little different. And I still remember her face. The first time she beat mommy fair and square, it was like she'd won some Academy Award. You know, she did it all. And what she didn't know is I was even, you know, on the inside, I didn't want to show it on my face. I was even more happy because A, she realized crime doesn't solve anything. And B, she knew deep down she'd won fair and square. Like she beat mommy, and that was reward in and of itself. But it taught her that crime doesn't solve anything. You know, if you don't win the first time, just don't give up. Keep trying at it. Try different things until you finally get there. And she finally did it. I was very proud of her. So, you know, there's one lesson that I also would tell my slightly older, you know, teenage self. And I'm actually doing this with my nieces and nephews because they're more middle age, more high school age. And it's stuff that I wish somebody had told me and that I'd listened to. One is, you know, don't let people put you down or tell you, you know, who you should be. Be yourself. You might not know what it is when you're, you know, 12 or 15, 16. You might not even know what it is when you're 20, but figure that out and then be that person. Don't be afraid to be yourself. I feel like even for us, when we were going through medical school and high school, there were a lot of times where you felt like you had to conform to the norm, to whatever the popular group did. And at times I did that, but then I'd sit back and I'd say, why am I doing that? You know, and I would try to, you know, be me a little bit and then I'd pull back. But I feel like it's important now more than ever to keep pounding at them with that because we need creativity. We need individuality. We don't want everybody looking the same and dressing the same. That's not who we are. That's not what we should be, right? We should be our own self. And then something also that I try to encourage them to do is don't be afraid to try new things, right? New things and explore. You won't learn what you like and don't like without doing so, right? You don't know what you don't know, and knowledge is power. So when you try new things, you gain knowledge. And then when somebody says something about a topic, you're like, wait a minute, I did this, or I know this. No, that's not true. And you can talk with confidence about it because you've been there and you've done that. A few other things that come to mind that, you know, two things really. One in terms of a career and one as advice to my more 20s person, more on love life. The one that comes to mind for career is find something that you're passionate about because, you know, then when you're doing it daily, you enjoy it. It drives you and it gives your life purpose and meaning. You know, you don't want to go into something where it just becomes a job for you and it's a means to an end. And you definitely don't want to wake up one day, regretting where you are and you're wondering, how did I get here? What did I do wrong? And then feeling helpless, like I'm old now. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't change it. So, find something that you're passionate about. It might be coming back to something you are passionate about, but having that courage to stop and say, I can still do this. I can go back and pursue this, and then doing just that. So the last piece of advice when it comes to finding your one, and I will tell you, I took 12 years to find my one.
And some of us are still dating, so 12 years is not a long time in the grand scheme of things.
Well, then here's my advice. Throw out that list that you have going.
I love my list, Ruaa.
Keep an open mind, but don't sell yourself short. Be patient. I think I can't stress that enough. Be patient. No one is going to be 100% off that checklist that you have going. It's just not going to happen. We're all different people. We're individuals. We think, we feel, we act differently. We value different things based on our upbringing. So, and here's another key point, Sylvia. What you think you want at the moment is just that. If I were to think back what qualities I was looking for in my 20s is different from what qualities I would think if I had to go back and make that checklist for my significant other in my 30s versus in my 40s. And there's something that, God bless my mother, she used to say to me when I got restless. And I would go meet somebody new and I'm like, they didn't meet this checklist, or they didn't meet this checklist. Okay, I'm done. They didn't meet this criteria. She would say the person who ends up being your one may not be what you want, but what you need. So stop and think about that for a second. It's not what you want, because when you put down that checklist, right, those things on it, it's qualities that you're looking for that you want. But go back and look at that again. Are those the qualities that you actually need in your significant other? And if they are, great, leave them on there. But if they're not, throw them out. Keep an open mind. Allow people to surprise you. And I'll say this, because this was very important to me. Let people surprise you. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't make a judgment on that first or second or third date. They were probably very nervous. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to act. Give them some time to, be them and let that shine through.
You've given us a lot. And just to kind of pick up on your last point, I have been actively working on grace and the allowing for being more flexible, not really getting caught up in the small things. And my intention is to extend more grace, so therefore I receive more grace, because Lord knows I need a lot of grace, because contrary to popular belief, I'm not quite perfect. So grace is a really important characteristic, or something I'm personally working on. So thank you for bringing that up. Angela, we just had a lot to dig into.
Powerful. I'm trying to write things down, and like all these nuggets. This is excellent life advice. And in terms of relationships, I mean, mine has been since high school, so I don't have that same. The only thing that I would add for women, young women, or women of all ages listening to this is know yourself before diving into a relationship. And that's really hard when you're young, because you're evolving. And at 55, you're still evolving. But in terms of, relationships, it's important to have a partner that allows you to grow. And it's important for you to be able to communicate with a partner what you need at different times in life, because it may not be the same 30 years later. And that can be a challenge. And so I just think most importantly to know who you are, allow yourself to grow, and try to, identify a relationship that allows you to do that, and hopefully, you're doing that together. So
Great.
that's all I'll add. But Ruaa, wow, so much good information. So clearly there have been people in your life, and I heard you mention your mom and your dad and your husband. Anyone else important that you think really helped to kind of shape who you are? Or if you want to go in depth about someone that we've already mentioned, that you consider like the important people in your life, be it shaping who you are as a woman and your career and even career changes.
That's an excellent question. I've been very blessed to have a number of important people come into my life, and some of them have stayed and others have left. But, kind of going back and talking about some people that I have already mentioned that have really shaped the woman that I am today, I'd have to say, first and foremost, are my parents. I was very blessed to have parents that didn't believe in our cultural gender norms for women, in the Middle East. They raised my sister and I on the belief that a woman should be able to support herself and her family and never rely on a man for anything, honestly. My dad used to tell us growing up that the strongest armor a woman could have in life to protect herself was a degree. And with a degree in hand, she was in control of her own destiny. So he believed in higher education for his daughters. My mother did too. My sister and I weren't raised on the belief that a woman's job's in the house. My mother wasn't, surely. My parents didn't focus on teaching us how to cook and clean and ironing. Not that those weren't important, but those were things that they knew we could learn later on in life. And they really encouraged us to read and focus on our education, and supported us emotionally and financially through college and graduate school. In fact, my father had told us that we couldn't even think about marriage until we were done with schooling. And that was mainly because he didn't want a man influencing or exerting his opinion on our career paths. So he was very adamant about making it a point, like, you need to, focus on your studies, do what you want to do, and then think about marriage. And it's funny that I say that because my older sister, she's a year older than me. I still remember when she finished pharmacy school, she had a diploma in one hand and a ring on the other finger. And she was like, haha, I did both at the same time. See there. And as I said, it took me a little bit longer to get there. And the main reason it really took me longer to get there were, life lessons and my father being the role model that he was in our household. He was an excellent role model. He, just like my mom, they both worked full time, comes home, they both go change. They would head straight to the kitchen. He was there by her side, helped her prep for dinner. She'd make it, he'd help her in the kitchen, he washed dishes. We would do homework afterwards. Saturdays were invested in cleaning the house and making dinner for the following week. And he was there dusting and vacuuming. The man was doing it all with her. And we saw that growing up. We also saw, him being affectionate with my mother, being respectful of my mother. And so we grew up believing that those were the qualities to look for in not just a husband, but a father. And so it made it very difficult, at least for me. I mean, I guess my sister found it easier when she was done. But for me to find those qualities in my significant other, I valued them. My mother, the same thing. She's very loving and affectionate, very respectful of my father. And she loved that he let her take the lead, or he didn't really let her take the lead. She just took the lead on a lot of things in family decisions. And it was great. We were, very blessed, very happy. And I was, I think I'm very blessed to have found my husband, Saad, since 2015. And, he is the most supportive and giving husband, and amazing father to our 5-year-old daughter, Eve. He has taught me patience. Before him, I can't say I was the most patient person in the world. I had my goals. I knew what I wanted. I was going to get there. And that was it. I was focused.
You're not alone with that one, but okay.
But when I didn't get there, I got frustrated and I was upset with myself. And he would just be there and he'd say, you know, why are you so frustrated with this? You know, there's no timeline. Don't set a timeline. Try to enjoy the path, you know, the road that you're on. Enjoy the moments. And then I'd kind of channel myself back and try and do that. He also, you know, is the voice inside my head. That's my filter before I speak and act on emotion at times. He's a lot more mellow than I am. He is very much a let me pause and, you know, take in what you said and then respond. I am more, and I'm sure you can tell, I'm like more acting on emotion. Like, wait a minute, why'd you just say that? Or why'd you just do that? I always tell him if there was a poker game going on, he'd be that winner with like this straight face holding, you know, the perfect card. And me, I'd be sitting across from you. You'd be able to read it on my face. I cannot keep a poker face. But, you know, going back, he has just, you know, taught me so many life lessons. Additional things he's done is to appreciate the silence or the silent times in our marriage and just in general. You know, before our daughter, when we were married, there were moments where there was silence. And for me, being more extroverted, I always had background noise. It just seemed awkward. But for him, he needed that, you know, to channel his thoughts, to sit with his thoughts and think about things. And it was only after marrying him, and of course, after our 5-year-old, where I'm like, oh God, we're going to have 5 minutes of peace. So I learned to really appreciate, you know, what we call quiet time. In terms of kind of growing and everything, when I decided, you know, to go back and pursue design, Eve was just a couple of months old and he was very supportive. You know, we would go to work, come back, eat dinner. He would, you know, bathe her, feed her, get her down for the night. And I was in class, I was, you know, studying, and he never complained. He had to do it all at some point for me to be able to focus on me and focus on this new career path that I wanted to pursue. And even to this day, you know, honestly, right now with both my businesses, with the interior design and recently started real estate, he is by my side at every moment of it. He does the photography, the, you know, the before and after photos for the design. He does the real estate photography. He does my social media, manages my marketing, you know, on top of working a full-time job. And I don't hear that man complain one moment, which has been amazing. So the last person, and you've heard me talk about this person as well, but is the most recent important person in my life, is my 5.5, soon to be 6-year-old daughter, Eve. You know, she challenges me daily, mentally and physically. She unknowingly forces me to kind of evaluate the person I am and the role model I should be for her as she discovers who she is as a young woman and what she wants to become. You know, as a parent, I kind of, you know, constantly find myself saying, am I a good role model? Am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? How is she interpreting it? You know, what is she going to replicate? And so she kind of pushes me to try to be a better parent and a better person for her and for myself.
I can completely relate to being the mom of 2 girls. It really can shape you if you weren't, you know, already, I guess, committed to, you know, certain principles or patterns in life in terms of, you know, you. And it sounds like you had really dynamic, I have to say, I mean, dynamic relationships in terms of true partnerships with your parents, it sounds like, and a very supportive father, which I think can be really helpful in terms of trying to raise a young girl and having the support of the male figure in life, if that person is there, and the female figure, but trying to make them strong, caring, flexible, as you mentioned, all the things that, you know, you think a strong woman should be, but it really changes as you are the parent versus what you thought, you know, I guess what you thought, you know, how you would parent a child when you're actually in that role. I can relate to what you're saying is a daily thing. Like, oh, if I do this, will she think that? You know, how will that influence her? But sounds like I said, you have really great role models, which I think is helpful. And you've lived enough before having a daughter where you already knew some of those things for yourself, which can be, I think, more challenging if you are someone that's younger. But anyway, I could go on and on. Sylvia, what are your thoughts? Any other?
Let's shift gears a little bit, Ruaa. I know that you are the principal designer for RNA Designs, and you recently became a realtor. So you have your real estate license, and you just sold your first home, or recently sold your first home. Probably by the airing of this, you will have sold many more homes. But tell us, how did you make the transition from primary healthcare to interior design and now real estate? And on your website, you talk about how you help people express their true self at home. So, Ruaa, how do you express your true self at home?
So for me, it's through home decor. As an interior designer, I strongly believe that a person's home should speak to who they are and what they love. And, so if you and Angela were to walk into my home, and I know, Sylvia, you have,
It's
Ruaa.
gorgeous.
Ruaa would come through as modern, clean lines, organized, minimalistic. I would probably say artistic, because I've got splashes of color, accents throughout the house. So colorful and, hopefully most importantly, comfortable. For my house, got a lot of, large couches, deep seat couches. There's a lot of walking room. There's a lot of, warm colors in there. I try to bring in different fabrics that you can touch, that when you sit on them, my rugs are like almost silky, so that when your feet touch them, you feel like you're walking on air. So for me, it's through, design. That's how I come out. And I hope that that's something that shines through for anyone walking through my house.
So your home is beautiful. Your laundry room is my favorite room. I mean, everywhere else is cozy and warm, but your laundry room is absolutely spectacular. And I remember the journey with you working with me with my great room and selecting the fabric and the color. And what I really appreciate is that my house is a reflection of me. So when I look at your website, not every photo is RNA design, meaning a particular design aesthetic, because certainly sometimes on some of those design shows, who did it by kind of their color pattern and their fabric. I'm like, but who wants to live in a house like that unless that's you? So I really want to thank you for helping me find my boho contemporary chic. Is that what I am?
Oh, I would say that, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely boho chic, I would say that.
I just have to second that. I mean, when I walked into Sylvia's house, I've been known her for forever. It just looks exactly like her. And the wall that you did with all the picture and the art, I just think literally is a work of art. But the colors and the comfort, it's just amazing. So clearly you are walking in your calling now. Can you tell, for those in the audience that are listening that may be thinking about making a boss leap, making a pivot in terms of career, and not quite sure, how to navigate what that felt like? What were some certain steps that you took? I mean, did you, it sounds like, you've got your partnership, so maybe conversations with your partner, but did you journal? Did you do pros and cons list? I mean, how did you make the changes and navigate?
So I was fortunate because the time that I decided to make the change, I had transitioned from full-time pharmacist to part-time pharmacist. And, we'd recently had our daughter Eve, and I wanted to do something more. So I knew I had a little bit more time. And I sat and thought with myself, and I'm like, what is it that I am truly wanting to do? What do I love? So I had a lot of time to think about it. And when I went back and thought about how I grew up, and like I said, that the moment in our old house, I said, you know what? I want to do something a little different from pharmacy. I want to go back to something I really enjoyed and see if I can have a career out of it. And, my husband was like, it's the best time to do it now, because if it doesn't work out, then you can try something different. And if it works out, I'm here for you for whatever you need. And, thankfully it did work out, but it wasn't easy. At the time, believe it or not, I think one thing that really pushed me to start down the business pathway was we were building our own house as well. And, I'm not giving out names, but we didn't have the best of builders.
That's a whole podcast in itself, from what I
That
understand.
is a podcast in itself. We didn't have the best of builders, and at times I didn't feel like he was being honest with us, and there were shortcuts that were being taken that probably shouldn't have been. And so I found myself scrambling at night, eaves down, and I'm like, okay, I've got to go read on this topic that we're about to start as a part of, the project in the house. I need to make sure that I understand what's going on and what they're doing to ensure that they're doing it right? Because again, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't want to speak to what you don't know. So you got to educate yourself on the topic before you start to question what's being done. And so I'm like scrambling, like, okay, so we're doing framing, we're doing sheetrock, we are doing install of cabinets, we're doing insulation. Saad is now an expert on HVAC, if you ask him, all the knickknacks that go with it. And it was a huge learning curve. And then by the time I was done with it, I didn't even say this, but we actually ended up releasing our builder from the build. And I ended up having to scramble at one time, having 7 subcontractors in the house at once.
So let's be clear here. You were basically acting as the GC or the project manager for the building of your own house, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at one time, because, we had a limited time for construction to be completed. And of course, this was during COVID, and our contract was for 6 months on the build, and it had already been 2 years. And so the bank was like, okay, you've asked for this construction loan. When's this project going to be done? And it got to a point where he wasn't doing any more work. He was like, I need to get paid in advance. I need more money. And we were like, no, we're not giving you money for work that hasn't been done. The bank doesn't even release money until they come in and make sure that the work's been done. So when we realized that, it was time to just kind of move on, I was like, okay, I'm taking design classes. I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing. I can do this. And so I was like, yep, you can do it. You can do it. So I actually took time off from work and, sat there and scheduled subcontractors, and I was present on site one after the other. It's funny because the neighbors always say, like, oh, we haven't seen any progress in the house in a couple of months. And all of a sudden there are like 7, 8 people on site. Guess the builder's finally finishing. And it was Ruaa finally finishing, because she was fed up with 2 years of not having a house. And so, I had the subcontractor for, the cabinets. We purchased all of the fixtures in the house. I picked out handles for the cabinets, went in and did the quartz, the shower people. He had a good deal of the framework and up to sheetrock done, but, had to figure it all out from there. And then just kind of, going through with the inspectors and what did we fail, and asking them, how do we fix it? And kind of calling the electrician, the electrical inspector, and saying, hey, what do I need to pass this inspection? Because believe it or not, we failed plumbing. I had to go back and figure out what to do. We were failing HVAC. And I had to call and try and figure out, okay, well, how do we get this to pass inspection? What needs to get done? And, I'm extremely thankful that those inspectors, they were tough, but they were extremely helpful. When I called them up and I asked questions, they answered. They were there. One of them had even said, I can swing by and take a look and see if there are other things that need to be done. And they came. And so once the house was completed, I was like, okay, so I've got my design certificate under my belt. I just finished a good portion of my house. Why can't I start a business and do this? You know, I can do this on my own. And I sat down and I was like, hey, I really want to start a design and decor business. I've learned a lot. Why not put it to use? And it was kind of going back and seeing, you know, that silver lining. Like we were in a very bad and stressful situation, but you always try to think positive, like what did I learn from it? What did I gain from it? Yeah, it was extremely stressful. I was crying a lot. I was like, is this house going to get done? But there was a silver lining in the end. And that silver lining was it pushed me to say, I'm capable of this. You know, why can't I do this for other people? And I love it. I'm passionate about it. I can be creative with it. And so in 2022, I started RNA Interior Design.
That is amazing. Such a fantastic story. What came to mind, well, several things came to mind, but the quote that, and I'm sure I'll butcher it, from Nelson Mandela, is that you don't lose, you either win or learn. So during this process, you know, when you got, you know, declined on the plumbing, et cetera, you were learning. And I mean, what better experience outside of a classroom than to have hands-on experience? And while you're experiencing it, even though it sounds to me to have a young baby and all that would be overwhelming, but out of it, you realized, okay, number one, I'm passionate about it and I love it and I can do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's just powerful. And I just think so many women would really kind of get some motivation from what you have shared. So I think that's awesome. I do have a follow-up question, because it sounds like you are doing a lot and a lot of meaningful work at home and in your business. Tell us a little bit about your self-care regimen. You know, what do you do to regenerate, to continue to stay motivated, and to stay as positive as it sounds like you are?
So I would say the main thing is I time block. You know, between three professions, a 5.5-year-old, and household responsibilities, you know, Saad and I have a shared calendar, and I always try to plan things, you know, to a certain extent ahead of time. So if I want a spa day, or if I want a mani-pedi day, or if I want a lunch with my girlfriends or dinner with my girlfriends, or, you know, date night, grandma and grandpa are going to come and babysit and we're going to go have some, you know, one-on-one adult time, then we put it down on a calendar, we plan, and it gives us something to look forward to. You know, when you get busy in your hectic day to day and you're scrambling around, and then, you know, at the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, where'd the time go? Why didn't I get to this? Why isn't there more time? I scan my calendar, I'm like, oh, I've got a mani-pedi coming up. Great. And then you have stuff to look forward to. I also, you know, try new things. It's one of the things I try to do with myself. So, you know, recently I do Pilates. I just signed up to start beginner meditation classes at a monastery down the street from us. So I like to try different things, and then that also helps me figure out what I like and I don't like. So, you know, I always try to kind of keep things, I say, spicy. You need a little spice in life. But I strongly believe that, you know, in order to be productive and to be the best version of me for my family, I have to take time to take care of myself, not just, you know, physically, but mentally and emotionally as well.
Did you come to this regimen? Because that's all the things that I have not necessarily perfected, particularly time blocking. I think because as a physician, my time was already set. I mean, the things that I had to do, and I wasn't as good at your stage, having a young child, allocating time for myself. Do you think that came naturally? Like, it sounds like you have always been a very organized person. Did that come? Did you do that when you were younger, or is it something that you learned later in life?
So my husband says I have a very type A personality. So I aside from our shared calendar list, I have a to-do list, and I love when it goes ping, ping, gives me this like warm feeling on the inside that I've accomplished something in my day. So when I was younger, I planned, you know, things ahead of time. Things got a little hairy when we had the 5-year-old, because then, you know, 5-year-old, the newborn at the time, because you've got to find a new balance. Things aren't the same when you're single versus even when you're married. There's still a lot of time to do things that you want to do. But then when you become a parent, it's like, wait a second, we can't just plan a weekend getaway and go, right? I'm still breastfeeding. What are we going to do with the baby? So it was at that time where I realized, okay, if I really want to take care of me and I still want to get things done and feel like I've gotten things done, then we have to plan ahead and I have to time block. And then I have to force myself to do what it is I time blocked, right? Because you can time block to take go for a mani-pedi, but if you don't put yourself in the car and go do your mani-pedi, you're not doing it. And so then you're not really taking care of yourself. So it's not just time blocking, but really doing what you time block to do. And I realized, when things got a little more hectic, that if I didn't time block, then things that I needed to get done for me to stay, mentally and physically happy and healthy wasn't going to get done, because days are hectic and a lot of times you're just trying to go through your day, trying to get things done. You get to the end of the day and you're like, how did I forget to do this? Or why didn't I do this? But when I time blocked, I found time for it.
Very good.
Ruaa, you have left us with so many pearls, and you embody Boss Leap. You have been making Boss Leap moves personally and professionally, and we are so thankful that you were able to share all of these pearls with our audience, our listeners.
Well, thank you for allowing me to.
Oh, you are welcome. And some of the take-home points that I was jotting down: time blocking, authenticity, the importance of being yourself, living for today, and not being afraid to try something new, and not being afraid to, my word would be pivoting, and win or learn. I hadn't heard of that quote from Nelson Mandela. That is really going to stick with me. Angela, what take homes do you have?
That was, I'm going to copy you, but I was actually, again, I have to kind of write notes as I go. But the top one was the Mandela quote, is that I don't lose. I either win or I learn. And that is, at this stage in life, it's, you can, as you said, you can live life with regrets, or you can realize that, we are humans. So we will make mistakes, but it's what you do with those mistakes. You either, you count them as a learning experience, or you mull on them for the rest of your life, and it does you no good whatsoever. So as my youngest will say, when you know better, you do better. And so that's, I think, what mistakes are for. And enjoy the moment. And I am really trying to be intentional about enjoying today. So waking up with, some certain things, and meditation is one of those things, Ruaa, that I have incorporated in the recent years. As Sylvia mentioned it to me about 3 years ago, have you tried mindfulness? And I was like, what do you mean? So I have done a lot of investigation, and definitely prayer and meditation are things that work for me. And I see that you're doing some mindful things for yourself. And I have to commend, at a young stage, when your daughter is young. So I think you will do very well, having already adopted, those things, those self-care things. And I think the last thing that I have, taken from you, Ruaa, is just fortitude. It sounds like you were just born with it. And, some people are born with it, and some people will adapt and, evolve and gain some of that fortitude. But you had it when you were young. And clearly it has, guided you. And certainly there have been a lot of people in your life that have helped to shape that. But it just sounds like you have maintained your mental and your physical power, and that fortitude to continue to do what that you're able to. And so truly, I think, an inspiration for those that are going to listen to this. And we just can't thank you enough for your time. And I would love to see your house. So I know, I know how to get in touch, with via Sylvia, but I already know what you've done with her house. And quite honestly, maybe calling you up soon here, so at mine. So can you tell us how listeners can reach you? Because I certainly think you're going to have a lot of interest just with the things that you've shared with us today through RNA design.
Well, the best way to reach me would be via the contact info on my website, rnaidesign.com. But I would also love it if they could follow me on Instagram, and that would be RNAi Design. And Angela, you will soon be invited to my house to see it as well. I'd love to have you over. As well as Sylvia, love to have you back.
That was just a shameless little dig just to get myself invited. But no, I love design and love what you've done. So thank you so much. And Sylvia, do you have anything?
No, again, thank you so much, Ruaa, for joining us today. Boss Leap, we have had Ruaa Al-Baldawi of RNA Design, and you can follow us online at bossleappodcast.com. Please drop us a line to let us know what you're interested in next. And thank you for listening.
Thank you both, Angela and Sylvia, for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to be able to sit down with both of you ladies. And it's Sylvia, you say break bread soon enough.
Awesome. And for all of you out there, we just wish you well. Want you to live well and evolve well.
Absolutely. May you be well.
That's a wrap on another episode of Boss Leap. May this conversation enlighten your path toward personal growth and professional empowerment. For more thought-provoking and eye-opening discussions like this one, head to our website at bossleappodcast.com. Always remember to celebrate your wins and trust yourself. A positive mindset can push you out of your comfort zone and into far greater heights. Until next time, may you be well.
Before we go, there's one more thing the lawyers have asked us to include. It's the legal language. And you know how doctors love lawyers. This podcast is presented only for educational and entertainment purposes. Although we are doctors, on this show, we are just your friends. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. Understood? Awesome. We'll see you in the next episode.